Want to go to Cuba? This week on Stogie Geeks Shorts, we give you the lowdown on what you need to do to plan for this, so stay tuned. Welcome to Stogie Geeks Shorts. I'm your host, Will Cooper, and I'm broadcasting from Studio C in North Carolina, where we are powered by the Villiger North America Studios in Rhode Island. And this week, we are going to talk to you about how to go to Cuba. And I think a lot of folks know that I recently have come back from a trip to the island of Cuba. And while I was there, I kind of, it was a learning experience. And as a result of that experience, what I discovered is going to Cuba is probably a little more difficult than going to most countries. So what I wanted to do is give you some tips as far as the experience goes there. So if you do decide to go to Cuba, and it's going to get a lot easier to go to Cuba over the next couple of years as we get closer to the embargo being lifted. But in the meantime, if you're looking to go, here are some helpful hints. First of all, I recommend that you find a very good tour group. I went with the folks from Smooth Drawers Radio, and you can find them at www.smoothdrawers.com. They are running trips to Cuba. One of the folks from the show is Nick Cigars. He has a lot of experience in Cuba in the cigar industry. He's made a lot of connections. And it's going to be real important to get a tour group that has some experience here. For starters, they're going to help you. The Smooth Drawers folks, for example, filed all the paperwork for us. So I didn't need to worry about the paperwork. I basically just gave them my passport, and they really took care of everything else, getting the visas and anything else necessary. But once you're on the ground in Cuba, you really have to have someone who's connected down there, whether it's getting restaurant reservations, whether it's getting taxis, knowing the best places to go. Just kind of navigating through there. You really want someone who's got a lot of experience. What you're finding is as more tourists come, particularly from the U.S., Cuba's having more trouble keeping up with it right now. So a lot of times it's not unusual for a reservation to be made, and suddenly that reservation is canceled. And the folks at Smooth Drawers are really good as far as being proactive, being able to kind of make sure everything goes smooth so there's no holes in the trip, so to speak. So real important to find a good tour group, and there's probably some other ones out there. I'll recommend the Smooth Drawers folks to the folks who are listening here. Second thing is do some research on Cuba. With the internet, it's really easy to do that. You can find a lot of good information about Cuba. And I always find that I like to kind of just learn as much as possible when I'm going to a new country, just so I'm not in for a total culture shock, so to speak. And I'll plug the guys from Smooth Drawers one more time. If you go to their website, Nick Cigars put together a series called Nick's Notebook. And it's a series of podcasts that you could download that tells you basically what to expect in Cuba and some of the how-tos. So some of the stuff from here, for example, I've referenced from Nick's Notebook as well. So I would definitely recommend doing some good research. Learn as much as you can before you get down there. It will make things that much more enjoyable. Now, flying to Cuba, we're in kind of this transition process right now where commercial airlines are beginning to fly into Cuba as I'm recording this podcast. So I actually went down on a charter flight, but now there's going to be more of the regular flights to Havana that you're going to start to see from the airports at various places in the country right now. But really, Miami was the main place to fly out of into Havana, Cuba. What I'm going to recommend is when you book your travel, and again, a good tour group will tell you this, you want to leave a lot of buffer, particularly on the trip back. A lot of times, again, there are a lot of delays with Cuba, again, because of the increase in tourism where the airport down there is having a little more difficulty as far as absorbing that. And it's not unusual to see these delays happen, and they tend to get worse throughout the day. Particularly, like I say, coming back, you definitely, from what I heard, delays are just more of the norm there. So, in fact, I had a delay going down and coming back. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you have a lot of buffer room. What I did also is I actually went down to Miami the day before, and I stayed the day after. So, again, I didn't have that problem as far as making a connection. It made it a little more of a relaxing experience. If you're going to try to cut it close, I think it's not advisable, to say the least, and you're probably setting yourself up for failure right now. I don't know how that's going to get better over the next few months, so to speak. So again, leave yourself a lot of buffer room, and Miami's certainly a great place to go as well and enjoy as part of your Cuba trip. The fourth thing is plan for a cash trip right now. Right now, you need to have cash. For the most part, your credit cards are not going to work in Cuba because the banks are not connected in there yet. So you really, unless you have like a European bank or something like that, your Visa, your MasterCard isn't going to work there. So you need to plan to have cash. The other thing to note is that when you convert your cash, the government is still taking a 10% kind of tax, so to speak, to Castro or homage to Castro or whatever you want to call it. So, you need to plan for that as well. Plan for having cash. If you normally take $300 for a 5-day trip, take $400. The reason is you're going to need cash for things like tips, and a lot of people down there, they work on tips. Because the wages down there are pretty poor. So, you want to take care of the folks who are taking care of you as well. So definitely plan for tips. And then just in general, plan for some more spending money, as far as you go for basically rum, cigars, or extra food or things like that. The trip I had food included, and they gave us one drink with every meal, which was really good, as well as some cigars. But you always going to want to plan for extra. And given that you don't have that option to run to an ATM, I would be on the safe side and take more cash, so to speak, out there. So they don't take American dollars. I was able to tip a few folks in American dollars, but the places will not take American dollars. The other note I'll just say on the credit cards is I've seen places actually not want to take the credit cards. So, if you had a credit card that worked, I did know someone who had a credit card that worked. They didn't want to use it a lot of these places. It's still very much a cash and carry country, so plan to have cash there. Plan for those little everyday things as well, the toiletries. If you forget your bottle of shampoo, it's going to be a little more difficult to get shampoo. A good tour group may have some of those things also in stock, but sometimes they do run up against challenges. But bottled water could sometimes be very tricky, where by a certain time of the day, a lot of places are out of bottled water. So again, you want to make sure that you have those types of things available. And the tour, there was one case on the tour where we did run a little short of bottled water, and lucky the folks at Smooth Drawers knew where to send people out to go get some of that water. So plan for those little things. Take your over-the-counter medications as well. All those things you're going to need to take. If you're taking prescriptions, make sure they're in labeled containers, because again, it's going to be more challenging even in a big city like Havana to find those little things. As far as internet goes, basically plan on not having internet. There's no such concept as private Wi-Fi. So most of the Wi-Fi in Cuba is through a series of hotspots that the government has set up. I think there's about 30 of them in the country, and it's not cheap. What you do is you buy an access card for 2 Cuban kooks, which is about the equivalent of $2 for an hour. And you buy this card. It's like a lottery ticket. You scratch it. It gives you a user ID and a password, and then you use that to log in. But like I said, there's only about 30 of these places. It's not a very fast internet by any means. So, I don't think we'll be doing Stogie Geeks Live down there anytime soon. And, as far as that goes, you want to, like I said, basically plan on not having a lot of that internet access down there, because it is just, it's a little more scarce. And the other thing is, it is also Big Brother watching you. It's very much subject to censorship down there as well. The government is keeping a close eye on those things. As far as cell phones go, your cell phone can work down in Cuba. You'll need to rent a SIM card. I believe they go for about $50 right now. I did not do that. But if you do need a cell phone, you can get it. And the way to do it is to get a SIM card. Your tour group, again, will be able to help you get those things. And a good tour group won't overcharge you for those types of things either. I have heard of some tour groups actually price gouging with that. So, you again, do some homework as far as those things go when you're planning. You're going to do a lot of walking, particularly if you're going through Havana or if you're going out to the farms in Pinar del Rio. You want to have good shoes that are broken in, because you're going to walk, and you'll probably, if you're not used to walking, you're going to get blisters, so to speak. So definitely have good walking shoes as far as that goes. Believe it or not, I advise taking some cigars down to Cuba. You may get down there at a certain time of the day where, a lot of the cigar stores close early, particularly the La Casa del Habanos, which are the really nice state-run stores, which we'll talk about maybe in a future episode of Stogie Geek Shorts. But as far as taking some cigars, you may get down there the first night. You're staying at your hotel. You're staying at a villa. I actually stayed at a villa. You want to have some cigars down there so you can smoke it. Once you're on the trip, you'll have plenty of opportunity to get cigars when you're there. Again, I advise going to the La Casa del Habanos. They have the best selection. They actually have the best prices, and you're getting legitimate product as far as that goes. Lighters and cutters are going to be no different in terms of taking them to Cuba as taking them to anywhere else. Put them in your checked-in luggage. I did get actually a lighter through on a carry-on, so to speak. There are a few, but again, you want to plan on having a lighter, particularly a butane lighter. I was able to get butane at the La Casa del Habanos stores, so getting refills wasn't too much of a problem. But I gotta have that butane lighter. There's nothing, as far as the Bics, they just wear really thin. Havana's a city that has a lot of wind, so the Bics are not going to work the best, and you want to have a good lighter to enjoy your cigars there. So those are some tips. Hopefully we'll hear from more listeners who will get an opportunity to go to Cuba. But that's it for this episode of Stogie Geeks. You can check us out at www.stogiesorts.tv, and of course you can check out Stogie Geeks at www.stogiegeeks.tv. The main Stogie Geeks show, www.stogiegeeks.com, every Monday night at 6:30 Eastern. And of course, Cigar Crew for all the latest reviews. Thanks, everybody.